Okay, Jeff Halper, you are now in Finland telling about the ICAD campaigning.
Yes.
Well, could you shortly introduce us the ICAD, your organization, the Israeli Committee Against House Demolition?
ICAD is an Israeli peace and human rights organization. We focus on the issue of house demolitions. Israel's demolished about 25,000 Palestinian homes in the occupied territory since 1967. So it's one of the most painful aspects of the occupation. We're really dedicated to ending the entire occupation. And that's why I'm in Finland. That's why we have an ICAD Finland group that's developing, like in other parts of the world, because we believe that only by mobilizing the international civil society and then putting pressures on our governments to act will we be able to resolve this conflict. It's not going to happen from inside because Israel is too strong, the Israeli public is too passive, and therefore you need international pressures. Israel will not voluntarily allow a Palestinian state to emerge. It is not negotiating good faith. It will not accept, if it's up to Israel, a genuine, viable, sovereign Palestinian state. And the United States can't deliver. In other words, even if Obama gets it, and even if General Petraeus says that the identification of the Americans with the Israeli occupation is compromising American interests in Afghanistan and other places, still you've got both parties in Congress committed to Israel. For all kinds of reasons we don't have to get into now, but Israel's become a domestic American issue. So that the United States, the president's hands are tied, and he can't pressure Israel in a meaningful way because Congress won't allow it. Which means then that I think we're approaching a collapse of this whole thing. There's no peace process. There's not even a pretend peace process. The Palestinian Authority cannot last forever. I think Abu Mazen is getting fed up. I don't think he's a collaborator. And I think this year, the Palestinian Authority is either going to resign or collapse. And the whole occupation is liable to get thrown back on the lap of Israel. Israel might, in fact, have to re-invade the occupied territories in order to take them back again if there's no more Palestinian Authority. Here's where September becomes a big deadline, because the expectation of the Palestinians is that in September the General Assembly will accept the state of Palestine within the 67 borders as a member state of the UN. If that happens, that changes the political dynamics, because now Israel really is occupying a member state of the UN. And if it doesn't happen, certainly the Palestinian Authority is going to collapse. So I think we're coming to a head in this whole thing. If Finland has any connection to the dislocations in the Middle East, maybe Finland is so away it doesn't matter so much. But in fact, this is a global conflict. And to the degree that it disrupts the international system, it disrupts energy flows. It's a source of alienation between the entire Muslim world and the West. It creates insecurities. It's created already 2 or 3 wars. Everything that's happening today in the Middle East is affecting Europe. Now, I don't know if it goes all the way up to Finland. Maybe Finland feels that it's sort of immune from those waves. But I think those waves certainly affect most of Europe. So what we're asking is that Europe take a more active role. We're expecting, for example, that if there is a vote in the UN, despite American pressures, that the European countries will vote in favor of membership of a Palestinian state within those borders. So, you know, we're not expecting Finland to lead the charge. And we understand that this isn't a burning issue in Finland itself, but we're trying to I think, raise the issue enough in the public consciousness that the government feels that the people care about this issue, that somebody's watching, and that they're not going to be able to abstain, they're not going to be able to vote against, but there'll be an expectation among the public that the Finnish government plays a constructive role, which means probably joining in with most of the rest of Europe in recognizing a Palestinian state. I think that if, in fact, Israel is occupying the territory of a sovereign member state of the UN, that's very different from this vague occupation of the West Bank and Gaza that doesn't have any defined political status. I mean, it makes things much clearer. It makes Israel in direct violations of UN resolutions, international law. It allows the international courts to kick in more. It allows for sanctions to kick in. In other words, it really changes the political situation. And if that doesn't happen, in other words, there's no American-sponsored negotiations, and there's no recognition by the UN, then this whole thing's going to blow up in our face. And it's going to create, I think it's going to force Israel to reoccupy, and it's going to create such violence and disruption in the entire Muslim world. I mean, I think there should still be a movement. I think we should still support an international movement to recognize a Palestinian state. But the more likely scenario is probably, again, this whole thing just collapses. My criticism, if I can say that on tape, of all of us on the left, Israelis and Palestinians, especially us, I mean, it's not your fault, is that we're not proactive enough. In other words, we see this coming down the road. We see September approaching. We see this all coming to a head. The collapse might really happen. We see all this, and we're not dealing with it. We're not talking about it. We have our BDS campaign, which is a very good thing to have, but it goes on. And we have I go out and I give talks at universities, and we do as if we're in a steady state that's going to go on for another 40 years. So I think we ourselves aren't enough connected to the political moment. The issue is that we have to have a solution to this conflict, and it has to be based on human rights and international law. So I wouldn't say let's advocate a one-state solution, a two-state solution. We have to advocate the protection of Palestinian human rights, their right of self-determination, a genuine solution, whatever that solution is going to be, and that's what we should be in the streets about. And not allow Israel and the United States and reactionary forces in Europe to keep this conflict going indefinitely.
Thank you, Jeff.